Welcome to the Advanced Sports Analytics Show here on Rotogrinders, brought to you by Jock Market. Stop throwing your money away. It's time to check out Jock Market, the app where daily fantasy becomes a stock exchange. Buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money. Download now for a 100% deposit match up to $50 using the promo code GRINDERS. And get this, if you don't turn a profit this week, Jock Market is running back their first market guarantee to cover your losses this week. So download Jock Market in the app or Play stores, or check out jockmarket.com, JOCKMKT.com, and use the code GRINDERS for a 100% deposit match up to $50 on your first deposit. And also remember, this Saturday, January 8th, is an exciting time for New York residents. Sports betting is coming, and it's coming fast. Fret not, for Rotogrinders has all the information you need. Find a link for more information in the description, or simply go to the Rotogrinders homepage. Navigate to the sports betting tab and click New York. You can find a list of all sports books available, all relevant promotional offers, and a whole lot more. So go to rotogrinders.com to the sports betting tab as we welcome New York as a legal sports betting state. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, BlenderHD. If you want to follow me there on Twitter. Joined by Stewart Gibson, the man behind the numbers and the dials and the hamster wheels at Advanced Sports Analytics for our final show of the year. I know we missed out last week. There's been snow, there's been COVID, there's been travel, there's everything, there's chaos going on. But we come to the final slate of the season. Is it, Stewart, is week 18 or whatever it used to be week 17, the most frustrating slate since a lot of teams will be kind of resting some of their starters, possibly inactives that we may not know until 90 minutes before. Is it a little bit like we're recording on Friday? Normally Fridays, it's like, okay, we kind of have a lot of the information. Sometimes something shows up on Saturday, but it feels like for this slate, like I may not make any decisions till 90 minutes before lock on Sunday morning, till we see if some of these players are either going to be limited or possibly inactive altogether.
Yeah, well, I will caveat that with the fact that we haven't had an easy slate, I think, all of December. I mean, they've all been pretty wacky for like the past month. But yeah, I think it's like a week where at least our projection system, I trust a lot of other projection systems are quantitative in nature, using some sort of model, some sort of statistical quantitative model. And like these models work under a set of assumptions that, I don't know, I would say just become kind of out of whack for week 18. So I do think it's like one week where, I don't know, projections are probably not going to be able to, like a computer is not going to be able to capture some of these nuanced, really infrequent circumstances that are going to contribute with some of these teams, players potentially playing 2 to 3 quarters only. You can do some stuff with like controlling for players rushing, target market share, stuff like that. But I do think there are some unique factors or parameters that really come into play with this week that are difficult to grasp with the model. People always want to talk about some of the motivation things, and like from just a model development standpoint, it's really tough to account for some of these like motivation risk of, I guess, like players playing incomplete games. We have really limited data to train off of and kind of define models off of, and I do think it makes it a week where maybe relying a little less on projections and trusting kind of gut, or maybe if you have kind of a very nuanced understanding of team dynamics and kind of what the motivation factors are, the relative risk of players, I guess, putting together like incomplete games, leaning on that, I think could be of value. Obviously, some of the stuff is absorbed. You do see totals relatively low this week, and I think that is probably due to some teams with starters unlikely to play or at risk of not playing the full 4 quarters. But I still think there are kind of some blind spots in a heavily quantitative model with some of these, I guess, end of season, week 18, week 17 in previous year slates.
Is the issue that you can't use like motivation as a covariate, very similar to small sample sizes? Like you can't just say like, well, one team has motivation, one team doesn't have motivation, or you have these bonuses. Like if he just gets 120 yards, it's like you can't apply them across the board, because in certain cases maybe they try to get him that, and maybe certain cases they don't care as much. Like you can't just immediately go towards like all of those incentives and go, well, this guy, if he rushes for 100 yards, he gets a bonus. It's like, well, what happens if they want to arrest him? What happens if they want to use the third running back instead? Like there's all these competing factors that it's very similar in baseball to BVP, like batter versus pitcher, where like it is a factor, like we say with motivation. Like, yes, if this team wants to get this guy the record, like they're probably going to be passing to him a lot more. But you can't just say that across the board, because you don't know when it is or when it's not. So it's like BVP exists, but the sample size makes it so that, well, do you trust it with this batter and this pitcher? You can't kind of just like across the board use it as a covariate for your model in general.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you ingest that? It's not like perceived kind of shortcomings or motivation are going to be applied like unilaterally across all teams, all players, all positions, and all weeks of all seasons. I think there are other covariates that probably do have more like unilateral weight or application. Stuff like pace, teams pass or run rate over expectation, spread, game total, skill of the QB for a receiver, and all these things. But I'm not sure that there's like an equal weight in all data points for some of these things like motivation. Motivation also isn't like a binary variable. I mean, there's different degrees of motivation. And then you touch on the sample size thing. I mean, we have one final week of the season. I guess in some seasons, maybe there's a team that have multiple weeks of no motivation. For the most part, there's really 1 week, like week 18 or week 17 per year. Don't really have that large of a sample. And I don't know, I suppose you could collect data on players' contract incentives, standings and stuff, and you could quantify, I guess, the motivation that way. But when you're talking about a huge kind of data acquisition undertaking, all these things make it, I think, very difficult to accurately or appropriately kind of incorporate into a model that is distinctly different from what you use in other weeks, aside from this kind of one unique week.
Right. How I'm approaching it is very similar to like a week 1 type of situation. Like, I think the projections this week are the most fragile that'll be all season. And I'm be more inclined to play contrarian based on that, if someone's motivation, quote unquote, is like the talk of the industry or whatever, oh, they're definitely going to get this guy 100 yards. Like, I'm expecting the ownership to go with it. And if I just assume that projections in general are going to be a little bit wider range of outcomes, I'm going to be more inclined to go with the lower owned, the lower owned wide receivers. There's the $3,700 cheap receiver du jour because everyone's sitting, and it's like, well, you could probably find 3 guys that look like that on other teams as well. That I think my total ownership of my lineups are going to be some of the lowest that they've been all season, and I'd be more inclined to, basically just not play the chalk and hope it doesn't get there. And based on the projections that I see in our Gridiron IQ on Rotogrinders, like nothing stands out. Like we have higher projected running backs, but within 1 or 2 points of each other, there's like 12. And then at the wide receiver position, like at a salary adjusted value, there's no one that has a higher plus minus than like 2 or 3. And 2 or 3 points for a receiver is 1 catch for 20 yards. That I think it's viable to play. You know, there could be 30 receivers viable on this slate. So I'm much more inclined this week to go against the grain. And of course, I'm going to say that, and then all the chalk's going to hit. But that them's the breaks in GPP. But I don't really think, based on these totals, is there really a chalk game?
Yeah, not really. I mean, Arizona, Seattle, I suppose. But you know, now with Edmonds being ruled out, I could see like I guess my numbers coming in were that, you know, the Arizona like Kyler plus Ertz stacks would be highly popular. Could see though, you know, the Edmonds thing shifting more ownership to the run side of that game. Yeah, no, not really.
I see people pairing the whole thing together. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's going to. I think Arizona is going to be the highest. I think Kyler. Why can't you just do Kyler, Connor, Ertz, and then run that back with either one of Penny, Metcalf, or Lockett? They all project. I mean, from a projection standpoint, at least in our projections, they all project decently well. You could even play Christian Kirk. You could play Gerald Everett. I mean, you could play some of these guys. I mean, the only thing that I'm always concerned about is with Seattle is Pete Carroll. So do I want to play a chalk Pete Carroll game?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I wrote it up in the article last week about Seattle. I feel like Seattle does play faster than people tend to give them credit for. Like, you know, they do have this reputation as being slow, real run heavy. Per our numbers, we have them as, you know, looking at average time elapsed between plays, like Seattle is towards the, I guess, bottom of the league in terms of time elapsed, meaning they're one of the faster teams. It's not like they're passing at like an insane rate, but they're not like a I don't know, you know, super run heavy team. They're kind of balanced as far as their play selection goes. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I know we've talked on the show about kind of Seattle being this really slow team, but I don't know, per the numbers I'm looking at, it's not like they're appearing to be super slow or anything. I don't know.
How would both these coaches' propensity to kick field goals on 4th and 3?
Yeah, that's not a number we're tracking. Or at least I don't have it readily available in one of our apps. I think that actually is like an input for our kicker projections for.
Yeah, but you have to understand from a ceiling, when you're thinking about ceiling, you would rather have teams that go for it on 4th down more often than you have, you know, people kicking field goals on the 5-yard line. Like that limits the amount of, you know, receiving and passing touchdowns or even rushing touchdowns that they could be in this game. It just 48 or 47.5 total is the highest total on this slate, but it ain't that high in total. I mean, we go back to earlier this season, it would be like the 6th or 7th highest total on the slate. That just because it is the highest total by, you know, 2 or 3 points, why do I need to eat into, you know, we have Penny at 21% ownership. We got Metcalf and Lockett in the 14-15% range. Ertz and Kirk in the double digits. Connor, obviously the ownership is going to have to be updated, but I expect Connor to be like 20% owned now. Why do I want to run into? Because any combination I pretty much make of this game is going to be me pairing double-digit owned players together. I'm just giving you the variables that maybe they all reach their value, but from a ceiling perspective, the way that these teams typically play, the way that these coaches typically operate, like maybe Penny gets 16 fantasy points. Maybe Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf get 100, maybe one of them does get 100 yards and a touchdown, but that's still what? That's 19 points, right? I mean, like 22 points, which is still fun, which is still great. I'm not saying it's not, but maybe there isn't anyone in this game that, like, especially on a larger slate, that you like have to have. And if you stack this game, you're going to be stacking pretty much the chalkiest game. I'm just trying to find reasons not to play it. And I think that playing the running backs as one-offs is a perfect way to hope that the stacks fail, because these are definitely two running backs in Connor and Penny that if they get 25 plus carries, this game ain't an over, right? This game ain't going over 47 and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that'll make sense. Our numbers kind of like the Arizona side, less so with Seattle. Yeah, like I see what you're saying. The running backs would figure to be like they're going to be chalky plays, but the stacks as well, like especially Arizona, like Kyler, Ertz kind of stacks will be popular too. So I guess, maybe one approach could just be eat the chalk with Connor, and fade kind of passing components of the game. That way you get your exposure to the game that is probably the strong, I don't want to say clearly, but probably the strongest game environment, and let, I guess, other people miss on taking passing components. The value with Connor is going to be so strong that I think he can be a tournament winning piece even if the game goes under significantly. So yeah, I could see that being a viable approach for sure.
Are there any what games are on your radar outside of this game?
Yeah, so we've got high scores on both sides of the New Orleans and Atlanta game. Really,
really, that to me, that game was like almost like off the board completely.
I mean, it's a concerningly low total. But
I mean, what's the combination? The problem with this game is that I prefer the Saints side. Like, I prefer Taysom Hill +1, but I almost don't want to stack anything else. And like, to me, Taysom Hill could get there on his own. Do I want to pair him with Kamara at 8,300? Do I want to pair him with any? I mean, like, just like no one. I'm looking at our current projections and like no one projects well. Like,
yeah, it is.
Like, I could see Taysom Hill as the quarterback fine, but all these other pieces just seem like who do I play?
Yeah, that was kind of the thing that was, I guess, jumping out to me is that, like we have a good score on the game, but as looking at the pieces, it does become like I'm not super excited to play any of these guys. I mean, I would probably look like Hill, Callaway, Gage type stack. Keep it obviously small with Taysom Hill given his rushing propensity. Yeah, Kamara does feel pretty tough given, I think, just negative correlation between he and Hill, even though he's a pass catching running back. Hill being the productive goal line runner that he can be. I do think there's neutral at best correlation, potentially negative there. But yeah, I mean, like Hill, Callaway, Gage, I think makes fine sense to me. Not super strong from a value standpoint, but I'm not ever a huge fan of playing like naked quarterbacks. So that would be kind of the direction I would look.
I mean, you could get away with like Olamide Zacchaeus on a cheap piece. But yeah, like I'm just looking at this, like, what would I make this? Like, it seems like every piece that I could put on just lowers my projection. But of course, the ownership goes along with it. I mean, this game is barely owned. I mean, like, so if this goes off, and also it's indoors, it's in the Dome in Atlanta. But I mean, it's also two bad teams. It's all. I mean, it's also a 40 total. So a 40 total inside the Dome doesn't say that much.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a real shortage of. I mean, we have one game over 45 this week, if I'm remembering correctly. There's like Detroit, Green Bay is at the second highest, right? And then you have the Arizona game. So I mean, it's a lot of low total games on the slate. Obviously 40 total is not something to get super excited about, but when there are a handful of games that are below 40, a handful of games that are, a point or two ahead of this game, Yeah, going to be super low owned teams. They're just showing up with fairly strong scores in our early runs.
One game that I have as a plus currently is Tampa Bay, Carolina. Brady plus Evans, Gronk, Grayson, maybe, like, and then running it back with DJ Moore or possibly even Robbie Anderson. I mean, Tampa Bay's pass rate is high. Brady's probably, motivation wise, going for the MVP. Antonio Brown isn't there anymore. I mean, he's gone. He's wackadoodle somewhere else. I don't necessarily see people paying 7,100 for Mike Evans. I mean, it's not like these guys are going to be unowned, but I think more people will with Ronald Jones out, take their shot on Keyshawn Vaughn at 5,300. And I'm not convinced that he's the guy. I'm not even convinced. I mean, like, I'm not even convinced that it's not going to be Le'Veon Bell or Kenjon Barner and that it's some timeshare at running back. And if Vaughn's going to be popular decently enough, like, why don't I just take a shot? Like, what can I go wrong by playing Tom Brady double stacks this year? Most of the time, I'm going to be good playing that stack. And if it's going to be a slate where it doesn't seem like many people are going there, why not do it? They're playing in Florida, so I mean, it's not going to be as cold as the rest of the games on the slate. Do you have Tampa Bay as positive leverage?
Yeah, we have both these teams as kind of middling. I do think like the Tampa numbers could be so like I'm trying to think of the teams we've discussed this. We talked about, I think, with when Aaron Jones was out with Green Bay, the notion that teams have kind of coaches, I guess, have like a latent pass rate propensity to pass, and that sometimes that rate could be inflated when they are short pieces that are kind of usually a part of their offensive game plan. I'm not so sure that like Ronald Jones is a guy that Bruce Arians is scheming around or through per se. Maybe not so much the way that Fournette was, but you could. There is, I think, a non-zero chance that, say, like Arians says, all right, well, I have Keyshawn Vaughn, who I don't love. I have Lev Bell, who's old and probably doesn't love. Maybe he does. I don't know. Just we're just going to skew super pass heavy. Like we've seen like Buffalo, I think, do this at times where they just play at a kind of a I don't want to say tempo, but more just like a pass skew that is distinctly different from kind of the latent or observed propensity to pass in the past. I think there is a chance that we could see that with Tampa Bay, that like our numbers aren't going to incorporate like some assumed elevated pass rate, but I guess there's a fair chance that could end up being the case. And yeah, certainly like the Brady stacks are going to give you good leverage against Vaughn if he gets steamed in ownership. I am with you. I've been prefer like during this kind of Ronald Jones sequence, like I don't really trust the Tampa Bay backfield and the kind of roles as being super clearly defined. So I do think for tournament purposes, like being underweight on assumed starting Tampa Bay running backs has been the approach that I've chosen to take. Think will continue to make sense this weekend, even if Keyshawn Vaughn is kind of assumed to be the starter. And it's not like he's like at an insane price discount. The DraftKings has priced him up a little bit. So yeah, I think from a leverage standpoint, it does make sense. I mean, another concerningly low game total, though. I guess Tampa Bay has an implied total that's significantly higher than, say, the Saints. But yeah, per our numbers, we have them as kind of a middling stack.
How about very similar to the Brady doubles? The team with the highest implied team total on the slate is Buffalo, 28.5. They're facing the team with the lowest implied team total, the Jets. I'm not necessarily saying that you should play any Jets, because if Crowder's back, that kind of takes away like Braxton Berrios. Like the Jets are getting healthier, but that doesn't mean anything because they're horrible. Josh Allen double stacks. We have Emmanuel Sanders, who's now doubtful. So that kind of eliminates kind of a guy out of their passing tree. Like Stephon Diggs has not been worth 7,800 this year. But like, why can't I play Allen, Beasley, Davis, or Dawson Knox? I mean, to me, I view Josh Allen the same way that I view Tom Brady. Like double stacks. Obviously, Allen has a bit more rushing upside. And they're playing the Jets, for crying out loud. I mean, like why aren't I just, because Singletary is going to be owned at 6,000. But like Beasley, Diggs, and Davis, like the receivers don't really project that well for Buffalo, but they have a 28.5 implied team total. So like Josh Allen projects well. Just a matter of like where do the touchdowns go? And they could be spread out in Buffalo, but I don't necessarily I don't necessarily see the Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen himself will be more owned than Tom Brady, but I'm not sure like Beasley, Diggs, Davis, Knox. I just who's going to be the chalk between those guys? Like I don't see any of these guys getting more than 10% owned. So why not just play Buffalo without any run backs and just hope they win 42-3?
Yeah, we've got a positive score on Buffalo. They're standing out with kind of Arizona as one of the, I mean, they're two of the higher owned stacks, but I think two of the relatively high owned stacks that are worth, I think, being a bit overweight on. And yeah, I mean, just looking at the player specific ownership numbers, not seeing huge ownership on individual pieces of Buffalo. I think it's really, just the Singletary, and I guess Josh Allen should catch a little bit of ownership, but like it's not, I mean, quarterback, none of these guys are really at like a preventatively high ownership level. So yeah, I think Buffalo makes good sense. I'm not that familiar with like where they are in the standings, and is there any risk of Allen?
No, I think they want to win. I think they want to, I think they're in the playoffs, but with like a higher seed or something, right? I mean, they have motivation to play. Yes.
Right.
I believe so.
And I mean, we've seen Allen even get there in 3 quarters. Buffalo can really just blow out some of these weaker opponents. So yeah, I think Buffalo makes plenty of sense. We've got a slightly positive kind of score on them, but I would be pretty interested in playing that stack over some of these more, like we have positive scores on just like really, really low owned teams that I'm not sure make much sense. Probably are just like noisy outcomes and simulations that, could shift over the weekend.
Do you have another game that's a plus in your mind?
Let's see.
I wanted to ask you about one game in particular. I don't know if you had a plus or minus.
So there's one that I've got like a relatively, a decent plus on one side and like a big minus on the other side, and that's Baltimore Pittsburgh. I've got like
I'm assuming, Stewart, that you got a big minus on the Baltimore side.
Vice versa. I got big minus.
I don't know if you, when you say minus, is it it's top stack potential, or are you talking about versus ownership? I think Tyler Huntley is going to be very popular this week.
Interesting.
So like, that's why like in reverse, like I have in projection wise, I have guys like Claypool and Harris higher projected, but Ben Roethlisberger poorly projected. I have Huntley as the quarterback higher projected, but like Bateman and Brown and Andrews and all those type of guys, like poorly projected. It's one of those situations where like, I think the quarterback is going to end up dragging some of the other Ravens ownership with him, which will make it negative leverage. But I could see how from a probabilistic standpoint that they would rank like in the top half, like how Baltimore could be up there, but maybe a little. I'm questioning the owner. If Huntley's going to be owned, I'd see Bateman and Marquise Brown gaining more ownership. We have Bateman currently now at like 14% ownership, and Huntley may be end up at 15% ownership. I mean, like from an ownership perspective, I have a problem with it ownership wise, not necessarily on like top stack potential, especially with Ben Roethlisberger throwing 4-yard passes 58 times. Like, is this going to turn into a shootout? I don't think so.
Yeah, well, so we don't have like a huge, real high ownership projection for Huntley.
Well, because the
I-
news just came out because Lamar got ruled out like about 45 minutes ago. So
okay,
like,
got you,
so you're not going
got
to
you.
see that in the right. That's the point I made. Before we started recording, I saw Lamar's now officially out. So like
Okay,
all of our stuff doesn't even have an ownership projection for Huntley yet
got it.
because it's going to have to be updated. But at his price, like he's going to be popular.
Yeah, yeah. That would make sense. I mean, we have him at like 3% ownership, and yeah, just given his rushing floor, that seems unlikely to hold. We've got a low, like just like a industry aggregate projection on Huntley, so that might be some like divergence in, I don't know, belief of who's starting and who's not. So that could be up for movement. I mean, I just sense that Pittsburgh will be very heavily owned, with Deontay Johnson being out. I think like Claypool and even Ray McLeod are going to be super popular. And
Yeah, but they only have an 18.75. I mean, they don't even have a high like team total.
yeah, no, I mean,
And it's Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball.
right. No. I have Pittsburgh as kind of a strong minus and Baltimore as the plus. Like I would like to be underweight on, I don't want to say chalk, but very popular Claypool, McLeod, Roethlisberger stacks, just given, yeah, their quarterback, the pace at which they play. As it stands now, we've got, a good plus on Baltimore and kind of strong minus on Pittsburgh. Seems like that could move around though as we, update our numbers and rerun our simulations.
Right. I have a minus on both sides. So I mean, like only because I think Huntley's going to be more owned than that. What are your thoughts? What do you have? The interesting game to me that I'm looking at is Chicago, Minnesota. Obviously, they're playing in Minnesota, so that's inside in the dome. Minnesota has a 24.75 implied team total. The Bears are like 19. But like Cook projects well, Jefferson projects well. Then Montgomery is okay. Mooney is not bad. Komet is okay at tight end. Like, why can't I do something like Cousins, Jefferson, Conklin, Mooney, like something like that? Why can't Andy Dalton, for crying out loud? Like, why not take it? It's kind of weird to say. Why can't I play Dalton, Mooney, Komet, Cook, or Dalton, Mooney, Komet, Jefferson, or something like that? And it's not like the ownership is really there. Jefferson is probably going to be owned. Cook is going to be decently owned. Montgomery, whatever. I mean, double digit. Komet may be a popular punt tight end, but like I just don't see people stacking this game with either Cousins or Dalton.
So our numbers suggest that this game should get a decent bit of traction from the Minnesota side, mostly just because Jefferson is going to be quite popular.
But it's all one-off. Like I view this game as like I see people playing one-offs from this game, but I don't see people playing Cousins or Dalton or play this as a game stack.
Why? Yeah. So like, what? Just kind of mental model for you. Like, how do you distinguish these? I guess popular one-offs that are likely to be played as one-offs as opposed to a clearly strong kind of pass catcher that people are going to be inclined to stack up? Is it just like a value proposition from the quarterback?
Yeah, value proposition. And also, just psychological. People don't like, do you want to play Kirk Cousins? No one ever wants to play Kirk Cousins, but he does get there sometimes. And no one wants to play Andy Dalton. So like all these pieces project well. I can see people playing them as secondary stacks. Jefferson on one side, Mooney on the other, or something like that. But like if we're going to see guys like Huntley and Taysom Hill, some of those cheaper quarterbacks, like they're playing indoors. I mean, it's still a low probability, but like if I'm considering playing Mooney plus Jefferson in a lineup, like why not just stack it up and play Dalton and Komet and just go for it? And as we say that, we just got news that Deontay Johnson has been activated from the COVID list. So I'm assuming he's going to be playing, which makes the Pittsburgh stacks even less desirable.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That
But
makes
that's what,
sense.
but I wondered, like, what do you have? I could see the Chicago side being low in your model, but Minnesota has a fairly healthy team total, 25,
Yeah,
4.75. But I don't. Cousins may be 1% owned. Like Jefferson may be 22% owned. Cook may be 18% owned, and Cousins is going to sit there at like 1.5% ownership, and it's like, well, why can't I just play Cousins plus Jefferson plus Conklin, and the Vikings go off, then like Cousins is a cheap enough quarterback and he'll get there.
yeah. The Minnesota side to me looks pretty strong. I have them like just below Buffalo as far as one of these. I think Cousins. I would expect he gets more than 1% ownership.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
don't think so.
If he's 1% owned, I think it looks like an extremely strong play. I think even at like a higher ownership point, I still be interested in playing the Minnesota side. Chicago, to me, like they project well from a value standpoint. I do have some concerns about the ceiling of I guess the Chicago side with Dalton at quarterback. Not that Kmet at his price point or Darnell Mooney can't get there as like a bring back of a Minnesota stack, but or even David Montgomery. But I would be a little concerned about trying to go like a Dalton double or even I don't know, Dalton single. I would prefer to attack this game through the Minnesota side. And obviously I think Chicago feels like a team you would want to bring back with Minnesota as opposed to like the Jets, where I'm, I think happy to just not bring back any Jets. But we've got positive numbers for Minnesota, not so much though for Chicago.
One game that I'm considering staying away from completely is Packers Lions. I'm gonna get there. I think the Packers, I think the starters play the first half and then they don't. And that's to me, that's the worst situation for rostering anyone in DFS. I'd rather them either not play or play the whole game. So if Devontae Adams is going to play, and to get his single season record for the franchise, he'll go 3 for 30 with a touchdown and then sit. Right. So it's so why are you going to pay up for that? And then it's well, why don't you try to play Equanimous St. Brown, like some 3K receiver? If they sit Lazard and MVS in the second half, it's well, I'm not going to pay for just guys that are going to be on the field for pretty much the second half of the game. And then you get the Lions and they're horrible. So I don't know how you're accounting for situations like that, but if the Packers line up with their starters, I can't possibly see them playing the entire game, and they're priced as if they're going to play the entire game. But then I still can't play the other guys because they're not going to play the entire game. So
yeah,
is it odd for me to just almost cross this game out completely?
No, not at all. We've got low grades on this game. I mean, our approach is, I don't know if it's an oversimplification or if trying to be more complex about it is a mistake, but really just estimating probability or kind of expected value of proportion of game played by these different players, and multiplying their projection and their floor and ceiling, or kind of their distribution of projections through that expected kind of proportion of game played. And the Green Bay side in particular is priced up as if you're going to get a full game, which maybe you will, but it feels somewhat unlikely at this point. I think we have like a 2/3 proportion on these Green Bay guys as of now, and that might even be generous.
Last game I wanted to touch on is Rams 49ers. We got Cooper Kupp 9,700 on DraftKings. I don't expect him to be all that popular, but he'll still be popular enough. But it's not going to be one of these. He's going to be 35% owned type of weeks. Why not play Stafford plus Kupp plus Higbee?
Yeah,
and run it back with Eli Mitchell or something. My concern in this game is there may be a lot of rushing, and Stafford does not look good. like the past couple of games. I know I'm just putting in like not look good is not incorporated to the model, but when you win the game and yet you're still throwing 3 interceptions, like that's not good for ceiling. I don't want any interceptions. You need to maintain possession of the ball. But if you're gonna play for a big Cooper Cup game, like that's totally correlative to Stafford. And if I don't think Stafford's gonna be that owned. Like it's one of these games where I feel like if I play Eli Mitchell as the run back, the Rams don't get there for their ceilings. And then it feels like, is there anyone to play? Do I play Kittle as a run back? Debo is way overpriced, I think. Or do I just play the Rams without any run back at all? It seems, but it just, to me, Eli Mitchell is that key of, if Eli Mitchell has a 30 fantasy point game, like none of my Rams got there, right?
Yeah, we've got pretty strong negative score actually on the Los Angeles side, but I'm looking at kind of the individual like leverage scores on the pieces on the side, and we actually do like Cup a decent bit. So I do find it perplexing that kind of on aggregate we're pretty low on the Ram side, yet at kind of the micro level seem to like Cup, seem to like Sony Michel. So I guess like to me those numbers suggest our kind of prescribed approach would just be take one-off pieces of this game. It does feel like, while I like kind of individually Michelle or Cup or Eli Mitchell, the pieces don't really combine together in like a very functional way. Like obviously Michelle Mitchell is, I don't think, playable across from one another. And I tend to agree with you, Cup versus Mitchell, just at Cup's price point. If the game gets slowed down to any extent, it's going to be really tough for him to pay off value at 9,700. I think for me, I would just prefer to take the running backs in this game as one-offs, just slot in Michelle or Eli Mitchell, obviously not together. And yeah, the San Francisco side, like I think, Lance again looks like decent value, but you kind of struggle with like who to play him with, just given how expensive Deebo Samuel is. I guess Kittle could be one direction to go to, but we have kind of the San Francisco side as neutral to slightly negative. Not a game I'm terribly interested in from either side.
One game we skipped by accident. Colts Jaguars. The Colts have right now almost, they may have the highest implied team total on the slate. But really, it's from a projection standpoint, it's all coming through Jonathan Taylor. Is this a situation where the passing attack could be the positive? From a leverage standpoint, playing a Wentz Pittman type of lineup, because all these other guys don't project that well. They spread the ball out. They're playing in Jacksonville on the road. Jonathan Taylor is going to be owned. And like, do I want to play anyone on the Jacksonville side? Like at 9,300, Jonathan Taylor, if he's going to severely handicap your lineup with that price tag. But what do your tools show as far as the Colts from a stack perspective? Because to me, if they have a nearly 30-point implied total, and Jonathan Taylor is going to be like the only one in double-digit owned on the Colts, why don't I want to take a shot on the Colts scoring their 4 touchdowns through the air?
Yeah, so we have the Colts as the highest, I guess, propensity to appear in the top 1% of lineups. And just looking at some of like the other numbers that we post in our Substack, the value, I guess, of cold stacks is appearing to be fairly middling, like not super impressive, but their ceiling value, we're projecting to be quite high. Really second only to Arizona. And yeah, the leverage point that you mentioned, Jonathan Taylor, like by stacking up Wentz, Pittman figure to be kind of the obvious guys. I think, I'd even be interested in taking like Mo Alley Cox, typically like, stacking tight ends with the quarterback, not so much forcing it, but, the spots where it makes sense. These guys who have the potential to get a crucial touchdown. And, I think goal line or kind of red zone, green zone type guys like Mo Alley Cox are, going to have natural negative correlation with Taylor. So, like the Colts a lot. Jacksonville, we have as, middling to kind of negative score, kind of in like the San Francisco tier. I don't think I don't know that you have to stay away from Jackson guys the same way I feel like about the Jets per se, but certainly don't feel obligated to bring back a Jacksonville guy with Wentz stacks. But I think Indianapolis looks super strong from a ceiling standpoint, even though, the value projection isn't super strong outside of really Pittman.
And you'll be putting out your, even though with some of these late COVID additions and injury stuff, you'll be putting out your Substack, I'm assuming later today or tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll do the Substack tomorrow morning with the news we have as of this evening. And then we'll update close to lock. Won't be rewriting the article, but we can republish the tables that have kind of information that informs that article. Because it is going to be a somewhat wacky week, depending on how these different teams announce who's playing and who's not, or relative plans for pulling or resting guys after some period or under some kind of conditions of taking a lead or what have you. We'll have that out Saturday and kind of update through the weekend leading up to lock.
With this being our last show of the year, of the season, what are you guys at ASA doing during the playoffs and beyond that, outside of NFL football?
Yeah, so we'll run kind of operations through the playoffs, slate specific projections. I think we'll continue to do the weekly Substacks leading up to the Super Bowl. I enjoy the playoffs. I kind of like the small slate stuff. And then we have NBA projections that are live. I know we talked about at the top of the show, legalized sports betting here in New York, which is where I'm based out of. We will have, player prop tools for NBA and NFL. Those have been running all year. Have been using those a decent bit on some of these. I don't really know how some of these sites operate in New York as like seemingly sports books, but kind of fantasy platforms, but that's been kind of fun. And I think tools that I've enjoyed using and would encourage people to check out if they are looking to do some player prop stuff. We'll have that running through the playoffs as well. So
and you'll have baseball come out April.
That's the plan. Baseball coming out April, projections. We don't do like ownership and stuff for baseball, but projections, our dashboard type tools with, visualizations, sortable stats, like with some of the StatCast stuff. The plan is to do that for April as well.
And you could get all of that at advancedsportsanalytics.com. You could follow them at AS Analytics DFS. You could follow Stewart Gibson. You could follow me at Blender HD. And so that's it for the season. That's it forever. We're done forever. We're done finally. Right. But hopefully we'll be back next season and talking more about stacks, about correlations, about leverage, about everything to win your large field GPPs on another edition of the Advanced Sports Analytics Show on Rotogrinders.com.